Hell yeah. What's going on? What's going on out there? Good morning. Welcome to this fine Tuesday edition of BS with Hannas. Let me check my audio before I continue because my audio is a constant plague on me as I try what I like to call my little morning talk show experiment. And an experiment it remains. Audio check. Audio check. Boom, we got audio. Yeah, what's up? Welcome to it. Good morning, Hannas. That's me, Nikki Hannas. You can find this at BS with Hannas on YouTube, BS with Hannas on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast, all that shit. Once I'm done here, it goes out there. You can find my music. I call it heavy blues metal. You just heard a little bit of it. You can find it at nickybhannas.com, nickybhannas.bandcamp.com, Nicky Bhannas on all streaming services. The whole premise of this show is I like to wake up, take a nice walk, come in my little room right here, read some good shit, sharpen the mental weapon, so to speak. Get out here, talk to the people, go lift some weights, go about my business. So that's what we're doing on this fine Tuesday morning. I messed the title up yesterday. Man, that shit triggers me so much. When I look back at the way that the compilation happens, it's like a discography of sorts, right? It's like a work portfolio. I'll usually just put a quick bullshit title in here because I'm doing it live. Just because, again, I have to restart. I have to restart the live process 6 or 7 times sometimes just to get it going. So I'm not going to type in this title redundantly 5 times just to talk into a microphone and have no audio and have to restart it and retype it. So I'll just put the date in. And then when I'm done, I'll look back on it real quick, check, make sure the audio didn't cut out halfway through. And then I'll come up with a quick title, boom, send it. Procedurally, I fucked it up yesterday. So now I look back. I look back at my building archive of podcasts out there. You got all these little what I think are witty, tongue-in-cheek little titles for episodes. Uh-oh, why did my video freeze? No. See, I'm all on edge when I'm doing this shit. But I'm looking back and I'm seeing all these titles. And then here's one outlier, 7725. Amateur, unprofessional, disgraceful, reprehensible. But that's okay. Let me just double check this real quick. Am I still good? All right, sweet. We're still good. So anyway, like I'm fucking talking about today, talking about nothing, but at least I'm talking. So what's up? If you're here, hey, appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Yeah, so I took my walk today. And sometimes I'll listen to stuff, sometimes I won't. What I've recently been doing, I'll put like an earbud in and listen to something good as I'm walking. And then on my return trip, I'll just take it out and let my brain do the rest of the talking, let my brain do the rest of the listening. Enjoy my internal monologue, which I don't always enjoy. But I also heard that apparently 30% of people just straight up do not have an internal monologue. That's wild to me. How in the fucking world are you going to have any level of introspection or self-awareness if you just have quiet up here? I guess that's good. I guess that's good for a lot of people. Plenty of people, from what I understand at least, a lot of their sufferings in life come from voices in their head. You know what I mean? It's like that suicidal tendency song. There's a war inside my head. That's real shit, I can't imagine just having nothing, just no reflection, no point of debating inside. My one buddy described it one time as like a council meeting or like a board meeting. You've got all these different angles and elements and compare and contrast, weighing advantages, weighing pros and cons, disadvantages. That's crazy to me if some people don't. But I guess that explains a lot of the mindless, drone-like behavior that I witness. But I'm stepping out of my lane and shouldn't really be concerned about that. In any event, today I was walking, listening to Myron Golden. Big fan of Myron Golden. And I kind of feel like a fraud sometimes out here because this ain't always original thought, but like, fuck it, whatever. I challenge anyone to find a teacher of any sort who isn't pulling from resources. So this is what I'm doing, just as a preliminary thing to be said. Something that Myron said today and whatever I was listening to that I like. He said, meaningful work provides the opportunity to think. Having to think causes you to think more clearly. And that's a pretty true statement, I believe. I'm finding in my experience doing this little project, this little endeavor. Like I said, I'm still considering it an experiment. But every morning I'm like, man, what am I going to talk about? I'm pretty good at shooting from the hip. I'm pretty good at just winging it. I run my mouth a lot. So this comes semi-naturally once I get over the weirdness of talking into a microphone and looking at myself and checking audio and whatever. You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty comfortable doing that. But at the same time, when you're in the position that I'm in right here, and there's like a little bit of quiet, yeah, a little bit of quiet like that, it gets weird. It gets real weird. Weird enough that my listeners fucking left. Thank you guys. There were two yous in the chat. Now y'all are gone, but that's all right. Having to think, having to come up with something means if I'm listening, for example, if I'm listening to something on my walk, on one of my many walks, if I'm listening to a lecture or a sermon or a fucking documentary, whatever. If I'm listening to something like that, having to think with this goal in mind, right? It forces my hand and I have to listen intentionally. I have to listen for interesting little things to pull from. And then what I like to do, I like to jot them down. And then I got to rewind a bunch of times to make sure I get a quote right or to make sure I get an idea right, that I'm not misrepresenting it or coming in here looking dumber. And that's, having to think causes you to think more clearly. Go listen to Myron Golden. That dude's smart as shit. Very smart guy. I enjoy it. So that's the first thing today. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm not kind of choppy sometimes when I'm out here doing it, but it's all good, man. The whole point of it, the whole goal of this is just to do something good every morning and to put something good out there. So even if that's a awkward presentation, so to speak, meaningful work provides the opportunity to think. Means the bigger goal at hand should be to find meaningful work. Having to think causes you to think more clearly. Give yourself reasons to think instead of just indulging in thoughtlessness, meandering, meaninglessness, muscle memory, just going with the flow, man. So that's what I thought about in my morning readings today. From Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, there was a quote that stuck out to me. The whole premise of the section was, wherever you go, there you are. And that's a premise that I've heard many, many times. Wherever you go, there you are. But when you kind of unpack that, it's pretty insightful. You take your habits and your tendencies with you. Wherever you go, you're bringing your bullshit with it. Whether I'm here, whether I'm in Florida, whether I'm in California or Mexico, if I'm coming in with this fucked up expectation or a bad lens, if I got shitty metaphorical sunglasses on, everything's going to be in that same lens wherever I go. Is the grass always greener? On the other side, what happens when you get to the other side? You have to reassess. And if you're coming in with that bullshit, a bad attitude or a jaded disposition, you're going to bring it with you, which ties into the rest of my morning readings from my John Maxwell reader today. He was talking about what he calls one of his own things. It's the law of the big picture, in which the goal is more important than the role. It ties into the same thing. I see this in the restaurant all the time. That's not my job. What? That's not my responsibility. Well, if you're going to be a team player, it doesn't really matter if you're the star quarterback on all the fucking magazines or if you're the nameless giant offensive lineman. The goal is more important than your role. Do your role well, do your job well, and everybody wins. And that begs the bigger question on the individual basis, I suppose, like what is the goal? If I'm just living a life where I'm getting up every morning and I just get up and go to work and I want to come home and just relax, well, your role ain't shit because your goal ain't shit. Pretty simple, and it's hard to like come up with a goal. It sounds real easy in theory. It sounds, when you're in that spell of motivation and when you're in that almost manic state of inspiration, you got that goal all right till it's time to execute. And then you execute once and then you got to do it again. 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 And if you're in a state of demoralization or otherwise negativity, it's a lot harder that way. You got to keep that goal in mind. And then even if your role is small, even if your role seems insignificant, once I realized that my roles are not necessarily insignificant, which ties into my thinking that every one of us should be an example. And it would serve me well to realize that and then to act that out. All of a sudden little things matter, like missing the gym, even one day a week. That does matter, even if, but I'm sore, but I'm tired. That don't matter, because if I'm going to sit here and profess the virtues of going to the gym and working out and maintaining that and cultivating that as a lifestyle, it's to anyone who's hearing that, they can't really think, oh, well, Did Hannas lift today? Oh, he might have quit. He might have been tired. Nope, don't matter. They ought to be thinking, oh well, Hannas might be tired, and that dude's a fucking beast, and he's got really cool sunglasses, but I know he lifted today. That's far more important. That's the goal. My role in that is acting it out. The law of the big picture, so saith John Maxwell. The goal is more important than the role, which ties into another one of my readings. This is my main book that I'm reading right now, Embrace the Suck by Brent Gleason. He says our capacity for self-control is benefited by setting clear and realistic goals. When we exercise self-control, over time, our willpower can increase in both stamina and impact. He also more or less made the claim that willpower there's like a gas tank almost, and that you have X amount of willpower per day. And obviously you cultivate that. Obviously you try and become the person who has more willpower. But I never really thought of that in those terms, where it's an actual resource that you have only so much throughout the day. And the way he phrased it, it's like, you might have a bunch of willpower while you're at work, but then when you get home at night, that's when you start reaching for the junk food, or that's when your temper gets short. That's when, you just don't have that willpower. Your resources are exhausted. That's an interesting angle to it. One that I never really thought about. I like to think of willpower as a character trait, but I guess all character traits can suffer from fatigue, and not everybody's an endless well of everything. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's very interesting to me. And he had a quote from Aristotle in there. This quote from Aristotle I like. Aristotle says, allegedly, assuming Aristotle was real, but he's got a lot of books, so I encourage y'all to study some Aristotle. Aristotle says, we become just by doing just actions, temperate by doing temperate actions, brave by doing brave actions. So we become resilient by doing things that require resiliency. We become patient by doing things that require patience. So on and motherfucking so forth. I found that interesting. And like I've said many times, man, all these morning readings of mine, it's all meant to sharpen the whetstone for the mind, to quote Tyrion Lannister. It's a good mental diet. It's stuff that, even if it's all the same, like, you don't learn a C major chord on the guitar by playing it once. Maybe some of us do, but not too many of us. And they're going from a C major to a G major to a diminished seventh. You got to learn the foundations first. So even if all this stuff is very foundational on a theoretical abstract level, under the assumption everybody has it to fuck together, almost all of us are out here still learning, still figuring it out, still trying to refine ourselves. I know I am, and I don't think I'm that fucking special. So very important to me. Very important to me to do this shit every morning. You know what I'm saying? And I was hanging out with my boy over the weekend, and it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, this is a weird thing that I do. I get out here and talk and whatever, but I'm learning from it. I'm finding myself growing from it. I'm finding myself experiencing tremendous frustration and agitation and patience and all these things. But just by the act of doing it, it becomes more and more natural. If it doesn't work, try it again. Man, shit. The amount of times I was a kid and the fucking Nintendo didn't work, so I would throw the controller on the ground or something. The amount of times I would get 360 no scoped playing Halo Online or some shit, and I would just quit the game. And that's like a stupid thing. Like, who cares? It's fucking Halo. You're playing video games, but that's a principle there, or you're going to get back in there. That principle don't care about time. It don't care about the endeavor. It don't care about how you feel. It don't care about anything. That principle is the principle is the principle. And that's important stuff. I like to think I'm principally driven. The only thing that sways me from being principally driven is when I get in my own fucking way. So that's what I'm thinking about, which takes me to my daily Stoic reading today. I love the daily Stoic. I would like to meet Ryan Holiday one day. He gets a lot of flack for being a lib, but his fucking work is outstanding. He also probably gets a lot of flack for not really having original content. He stands on the shoulders of giants, and that's his whole thing. He's the Stoic guy. He's the Stoicism guy in an Iron Maiden t-shirt. But I fucking have read this book most days for the past 5 or 6 years. It led me into ways of thinking that ordinarily I might not have stumbled upon, or at least been able to concentrate on and make a scheme out of. So anyway, what we got today, July 8th, he's got one from Marcus Aurelius today. Marcus Aurelius says, Enough of this miserable whining life. Stop monkeying around. Why are you troubled? What's new here? What's so confounding? The one responsible? Take a good look. Or just the matter itself. Then look at that. There's nothing else to look at. It's the same, whether you've examined these things for 100 years or only 3. AKA, stop bitching and moaning. Get to it. There's things to be done. There's a task at hand. There's a duty at hand. There's a goal at hand, and you have a role in that goal. So get to it. You know, what's the matter? The same old shit? The same old shit getting in your way? Is there anything new? You're just confused. You know, who's responsible? Probably you. Assuming we're all responsible for our own lives, which I do tend to believe, except in rare outlier circumstances. At the end of the day, we have the autonomy of choice. Even if we're all arguably slaves to a system or systems in the plural, you know, the one thing motherfuckers can't take from you is your choice. That's important. So you're responsible for it all? Take a look. That ain't changed. Or is the issue the actual thing itself? Then look at that and tend to that. Nice and simple. Don't matter if you look at it for an hour or 100 hours or even 10,000 hours. But if you're looking at one problem for 10,000 hours, congratulations, you've mastered the problem. If you ain't done nothing about it, it's all for nothing. So, fucking A. That's my Tuesday morning. Thank y'all for hanging out with me. Appreciate it. This is the BS with Hannas. Good morning, Hannas. Tuesday special on this fine July morning. It's fucking hot as shit out there. So now it's time that I get to it. Tuesday's arm day, so let's go get fucking pumped up. You can find this at BS with Hannas on YouTube, going live at some unspecified time in the mornings. And then it'll go out to Apple Podcast, Spotify Podcast, Amazon Audible. You can find my music, heavy blues metal, NickyBhannas.com, NickyBhannas.bandcamp.com, Nicky Hannas on all streaming services. Appreciate you guys for hanging out. To those who have been here, to those who listen, motherfucking A, one love, keep it real, peace.